Thank you.
Thank you for joining this session hosted by the Global South Women's Forum on Sustainable Development. Before we begin, we have a few virtual housekeeping announcements. This is Rachel Ong, the technical host for this session. This session provides interpretation. Please go to interpretation to choose your language channel. Please stay on your language channel. Please mute original audio to only hear the interpreter. Welcome again. To maximize the bandwidth for all participants, please turn off your videos. Only if you are speaking would you need to switch on your videos. Please make sure that you mute your microphones at all times to reduce the background noise that we may have and any interference. If you're using any programs that would have large bandwidth usage, you will also minimize your enjoyment of this session. Please feel free to use the public chat box to engage with one another. Please do note that this session is live streamed and the recording will remain public on the ERAW Asia Pacific YouTube channel. As such, if you have confidentiality issues, please do make sure that you rename yourself as well as to avoid any personal identifiers when interacting with the audience. We are committed to making sure that we are in an inclusive and safe digital environment. So please make sure that you are respectful and to avoid replicating societal prejudices and inequalities. Participants who engage in disruptive behavior may be removed without prior notice. And with that, we hand over to our session organizers.
Welcome everybody to our virtual event of LALELA. I am greeting you again. Before we really start to get into the conversation or dialogue, I would kindly ask our host to put up a video so that we may start by it.
Stronger than ever, gotta be stronger. Stronger and stronger every day, gotta be stronger. Stronger and stronger, gotta be stronger. Stronger than ever.
We equally reject attempts to prescribe new rights that are contrary to our values, norms, traditions, and beliefs.
Apologies, Dinesh, I seem to be having problems with the device. Can you just give me a second while I try this on my other device?
For each other will advance the cause of human rights.
Stronger than ever, stronger, stronger and stronger. Every day, gotta be stronger, stronger and stronger. Gotta be stronger, stronger than ever.
We equally reject attempts to prescribe new rights that are contrary to our values, norms, traditions, and beliefs. We are not gays. Cooperation and respect for each other will advance the cause of human rights worldwide. Confrontation, vilification, and double standards will not. Mr. President, self-determination and independence are intrinsic and fundamental.
It's no beautiful melody when you hear a politician promising everything but a human being's life. First, it was
worse than pigs and dogs.
I thought, oh well, I have enough on my plate to deal with. So I brushed it off, dusted myself up, and smiled. Soon smiles turned into frowns, and all happiness faded when it became,
We will behead them.
could these be the utterances of a human being lacking knowledge? Or could it be a deliberate incitation of hatred?
Jail them for 2 years. Let's see if they can conceive.
So much hatred in these elderly veins, encouraging murderers, rapists, and priests to torment my soul. My life threatened, yet this is who I am. Do I really deserve to die? My leaders speak of peace, yet for me, they declared death. Because I am what I am, they threaten my hopes. Peace lies somewhere, but for me, it is nowhere.
Come here.
There are noises and scary sounds about me everywhere. I'm in a dark room. I wonder if it is the beginning of the end, or the end of the beginning. I am hurting. Should I die?
Disgusting, filthy.
Or should I try? Why would I want to be beheaded? Who would choose to be bashed and used as an election winning tool? Who would choose to lose privileges Why then would I choose to be gang raped?
Hold it. But teach the dike a lesson.
When and how will you get that clear? I will rise with hope, strength, and determination. I will fight. I am who I am because I am what I am.
Thank you so much, our host, for the touching video. Olivia Daniels in March 2018 wrote, "The world that's full of inequality. The world is full of inequality. No matter where you look, no matter what they say, the world is full of inequality. No matter where you look, no matter what they say, the world is full of inequality. It's said that fire can destroy anything if it burns hot enough, if it burns hot long enough, even if that anything is as tenacious as steel, because steel melts and it can be bent to my will. I am fire. I will burn. I can blend the world to my will. The world that's full of inequality. Because I am a woman, because I am resilient, and no one will tell me otherwise." Again, I greet you all, comrades, and I call everybody comrades so that I do not wrongfully gender mark anyone. I would like to welcome you to this our session hosted by GSW in partnership with Pakasipiti and different other activists. So comrades, I'm going to let the floor and I'm going to allow each and every one of our participants to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about what they do before we kickstart in the different conversations that we are actually going to be looking into today, and the information that we want to disseminate by engaging in this conversation as different activists in different spaces. So I will start over to you, Mary Richard. Please do kindly tell us about you and what you're doing, just for about 30 seconds to a minute.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mary Audrey Charge, and in my work, I am the director of Raoul. Raoul stands for Rise Above Women's Organization. It is an organization that advocates for the rights and freedoms of lesbian, bisexual, and gender diverse persons. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary Richard. Next up, I'm going to kindly ask Diana Mailosi to come through and also introduce herself.
All right. Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Diana Mailos. I'm the campus coordinator. Campus is an advocacy project, and we mostly concentrate on HIV and health. But it's part of my advocacy I do quite a lot of national budget processes and health financing as a whole. Good to have you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana Melosi. Zipho, you're up next.
Hi guys, I'm Rosco Moyo. I'm more of a consultant, development practitioner with focus on socio-economic rights, currently running Africa Kiburi, an organization pivoted on aspiration number 6 of the African Union that sees the lives of women and youth being part of the development processes in the region. So we're more into policy and advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Up next, Miles.
Hi, everyone. My name is Miles Moyo. I work for an organization called Voice of the Voiceless. We represent and work with lesbian and bi and queer women and transgender persons. Our work is mostly aimed at challenging and changing norms and attitudes that often limit and exclude marginalized communities from affirming their human rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like Tash to introduce themselves. Hello, Tash, can you hear me?
We're just trying to reconnect. Some participants have been kicked out, but they're connecting back.
Oh, okay, not a problem.
Yeah, Tash is back online now.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Tash Dawal. I am a feminist, human rights activist, digital rights activist, and I work mostly with sexual minorities, and I'm a media profession. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much, Tash. Chewe, are you in the house?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chewe Milosi, and I am the Finance and Administration Officer for Rise Above Women. I'm also a feminist. And yes, that's about it about me.
Thank you so much. QDP, are you in? QDP, are you in the house? Okay, it seems as if QDP is not yet in the house, but you are in. Yes, hi.
I'm using Zypos. So you said QDP, so I was like, who are you talking to?
QDP, I'm talking about you, but you can go ahead and introduce yourself, please, so that I know what to say.
Oh, yes. All right. Okay, hi, guys. My name is Carol, or QDQ. QDQ, letters, 3 letters.
QDQ, okay, noted.
QDQ, yeah. But Carol is fine. I am a programs officer here at Voice of the Voiceless, and I am a feminist, and I'm an angry masculine presenting bisexual. And I am also an artist and generally a mental health activist as well, and a disgruntled young person. So yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think I have covered each and every presenter that is going to be kickstarting different discussions. And I hope by the way I introduced you guys, it's also the way you'll be presenting to us. I'm really sorry I've been asking people to introduce themselves. My name is Tinashe Wakapila. but I also answer to the name Waka. In short, I just want to say welcome again to this session. So the main aim of this session is to highlight key issues around macroeconomic justice, especially for the marginalized LBTQ community persons in Africa. And I do understand that with each and every presenter, we have an understanding that we need to interrogate the different issues that we will be looking into, because this session we will use it, you know, in a creative and in an interactive methodology, so that we can be able to promote intersectionality and inclusivity in and around our different spaces that we are as LBTQ persons living in Africa. So I'm just going to kindly ask again to now get into the session and to have the conversations now in respective with the order that I had put through. And I do know we have got different presenters who are going to be presenting different issues, and we will be listening to you. So I'm just going to start by saying over to you, Mary, so that you can give us your presentation and your piece. Thank you.
Hey, Tinashe, thank you so much. Tinashe, I'm just trying to catch my breath here. Could you start with another presenter, please?
Not a problem.
Thank
not
you.
a problem. Not a problem at all. I think I'm going to trust to say the last person who introduced themselves could go in, or it will be also too much. But I'm just going to randomly shuffle you guys. Miles, can I please ask you to present?
Yeah, it's fine. I can present.
Thank you so much.
Is it okay if I read something from a blog that I wrote?
Sure, please go.
Okay. So, can everyone hear me?
I'm sure they
Hello?
can.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So the piece is titled "We Are Not Gays." In 2015, the late Robert Mugabe said these words whilst addressing the UN: "We are not gays." Nothing surprising there. Homosexuality was a subject he often talked about with fiery hate and conviction. He talked about it so often and with such conviction that some Zimbabweans have based and justified their homophobia and abuse of queer people solely on his words and his hate. During his reign, there was blatant targeting and abuse of the LGBTQI community, perpetrated by police officers, among other forms of discrimination within public institutions. To this day, institutional homophobia is alive in Zimbabwe, an ill that advocacy groups and activists are working hard to combat. But let me go back. This post isn't about what Robert Mugabe did or his contribution to a homophobic Zimbabwe. It's about 4 words: we are not gays. Another attempt to erase a whole society, to ignore reality and to push a false narrative. Africans in general would rather believe LGBTQI persons do not exist in African society, even faced with overwhelming evidence that they do. The truth is, some Zimbabweans are gay. Another truth is that doesn't make them any less Zimbabwean or African. The reality is gay people are part of society. They are part of our families. They are our parents, children, siblings, partners, grandparents, uncles, and aunts. They are our lovers, friends, and neighbors. They are part of our workforce. They are our teachers, doctors, nurses, employees, and vendors. They are members of our churches, social clubs, political parties, and football clubs. They are part of the everyday rhythm of our societies, contributors to our country's development, and leaders in various fields. This is the reality. It is that which our society chooses to ignore and simply declare: we are not gays. No amount of ignorance and political erasure can erase an entire community. Yeah, okay, so that's the end of that piece. And then it's just something that I was reflecting on when I was just reading the subject matter for today around key issues on macroeconomic justice for LGBTQI persons, the erasure of our communities, the erasure of our identities, means that when it comes to economic interventions, we're not really a priority, nor are we a consideration. I don't think I've ever seen a budget in Zimbabwe that actually is inclusive of LGBTQI, unless it's a global fund program or something with National AIDS Council, and that's mostly for MSM and centered around HIV and access to healthcare related to HIV, and that's just about it. But all other aspects of our lives are ignored. And looking at the access to employment, there's already a lot of barriers, starting from that already most African countries' unemployment rates are very high. And then the lack of education and skills that come as a result of this discrimination that queer persons face is another barrier to accessing employment. The discrimination within workplaces, be it private institutions or public institutions, is another barrier. And then just generally the structure of the workplace, which is very binary, very traditional, that where you find queer people really can't fit into that kind of structure in terms of the way they express their gender, the way they look, the way they dress. So some people would probably not be employed or not even be comfortable working in such a binary type of environment. Then accessing loans and other financial services like maybe insurance as well is a challenge, especially for transgender people or queer people whose maybe physical appearance doesn't match with the gender markers on their identity documents. And I think in most African countries, we are not yet at the stage where we can easily change our gender markers. So those barriers are still in existence. And I know a lot of organizations and activists are working really hard to try and address the issues of changing one's gender markers. And looking at even the funding, funding patterns, I guess, for LGBTQI programs, they rarely ever focus on livelihoods or economic empowerment. You can see programs maybe for women or for young people that are focusing on livelihoods and economic empowerment, but it's very difficult to find funding for queer people that will look at the aspect of livelihoods. Yet financial insecurity is one of the biggest. Sorry?
I just wanted to give you a heads up. You're left with 1 minute. We've got 5 minutes per speaker. So I'm just putting it out there so that you get a heads up. I was trying to send you in a private message in the chat. So okay. 1 minute to go.
All right, I'm wrapping up. So I was saying that financial insecurity is one of the biggest challenges that queer people face all around the world, actually. And it's also the biggest, one of the biggest contributors to violence, to discrimination, and to exclusion that we face in our communities and in our families. Yet we don't have access to funding that addresses financial insecurity. Yeah, I think for now, I'll just leave it at this and we'll pick up other things maybe during the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miles, for such an informative reflection and piece of information that you've just shared there. Again, I just want to welcome other people who are joining in to our session. And I would also like to give a heads up to each and every presenter that we've got 5 minutes per person. I do understand our host mentioned that we should be slow. I am learning to speak slow. So please do forgive me if I marshal up along my words. Again, we are at this session and we are here to dissect different issues and to have conversations. Thank you so much, Miles, again, for highlighting the key issues that there is a lot of unjust in the different spaces that we are found as LGBTQ women, be it in Africa or in Zimbabwe in particular. I can see from the chat box that Tash, you mentioned that you can go forward. It's 5 minutes, and the minute I put on my camera, and my audio to be unmuted, just know that the time has moved. Over to you, Tash, for the reflection or piece or poetry.
Okay, thank you very much. So I sort of wrote mine down so I don't miss my words. So violence against women, and in particular LBQ women, transcends the physical. It is experienced in other minute economic facets such as employment, access to opportunities, and inclusion. The discourse of inclusion being the key indicator of disparity between those that are on the margins of society, the pariahs, and those that provide opportunity and access. The LBQ community is at risk of isolation, being a minority within minority groups in the case of Zimbabwe, as it seeks to create a network of its own for self-sufficiency and sustainability. Funding trades have fueled this disparity by creating competition of the most relevant oppression, widening the gap of acceptance and tolerance even further. While it does increase the inclusion of queer people in institutions, the inclusion is mostly tokenistic or a means to an end, ticking the boxes per se. And gay men are generally hired more than women. LBQ activities are funded much less compared to gay and bisexual activities, especially in health-related issues, and more so because of the double burden of women in Africa, where women's education is sacrificed. LBQ women therefore tend to have the least education and experience, which is something funders now consider. Lived experiences are no longer sufficient to secure resources, and LBQ organizing is thus limited to the whims of those that provide resources. Discriminatory law and societal attitudes mean that LBQ women are judged by how they appear more than what they hold and can deliver. Feminine-looking women tend to have it easier. However, over time, no rumors about affairs with men or declining advances from men means that they are less likely to be promoted or advanced in some institutions. Imagine that one might be able to access their bank account on one day and fail to on the next day because the bank teller thinks that they are too masculine to be the holder of this account. Lack of information and freedom of expression leave LBQ women on a continuous cycle of puberty, experiencing things much later in life, and many of them as a first, limiting their views and perceptions of their world and their experiences to the context in which they reside, heterosexual and patriarchal, limiting their potential even more. In Zimbabwe, the number of successful businesswomen who are popular and openly LBQ is technically non-existent. Exclusion, marginalization, and discrimination supersede humanity and citizenship. There are no mechanisms for the marginalized to express economic injustice and exclusion, especially in a country that sees difference as a crime. Internationally as well, some countries advance, while others push back what we perceived as progress. But in all that, women's rights, women's advancement is continuously traded and sacrificed. The status of LBQ women even more so, because their existence does not fuel the system that the powerful enjoy, the system that is patriarchy. And mine is done. Less than 5 minutes, right?
You are right, less than 5 minutes. I had not even put up my video, but thank you so much, Tash, for such a powerful insight of everything that is happening. I did really appreciate when you noted the whole issue of stereotypes, to say certain women are getting it easier, and in certain spaces still it doesn't carry on there. I will thank you so much for that insight, because it was quite informative. I know people are burning with different questions, but like I said earlier on, we are just going to do a route of presentations, then we are going to get into the Q&A session. So without wasting much time, I would kindly ask amongst our presenters, I would just pick a name. Chewe, I got you. Are you able to present right now for us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, awesome. Please just
Hi,
get
everyone. So for me, I would start with describing what macroeconomics is. What does it have to do, or what is it? And my thought is the overview how our economy runs, the factors that influence the economy itself. There's inflation, there's price levels, there's rate of growth of the economy and national income, as well as the GDP. And in the context of Zimbabwe, the way I look at it, the LGBT community is already at a disadvantage from the word go. Firstly, the economy itself is crippling for everyone, whether you are LGBTI or just another person. So being LGBTI adds to the frustration or to the limitations you come across through your life. There is the inflation of it, the money loses value every day. So even as much as you are educated or you are not educated and you're running a business, you are constantly running into barriers. You sell your products, the next day your money is not worth anything. By the time you're going back to take your orders, you can't afford to buy what you're selling. So it's one of those things that eventually cripples the community, as it is that from the beginning, with our socialization and what the beliefs or the norms of our communities, we come with a disadvantaged position. Most of us have been kicked out of our houses because of our sexuality. And so we have not been able to finish school. We have not gotten a formal education. So our survival is usually informal businesses. And with an environment like one in Zimbabwe, business is literally survival of the fittest. It's either you can or you can't make it. There's no in between. And so looking at that, it doesn't allow the community itself to be able to contribute to the growth of the economy, to the country, because half the time, I feel like we rely on handouts. There's more reliance on handouts rather than thriving in building themselves, because every time you try something, the economy, the environment, the economic environment cripples you. It breaks down or it takes away from what you have. Today, your money is worth something, tomorrow it's not worth anything. And also with that, plus also the policies and the systems that are in place don't necessarily give an advantage to women. I'm passionate about women. It's to get to the top, you need to know someone who knows someone or sleep with someone who's sleeping with someone who can get you the opportunities you need. Business is about bribery. So in essence, for me, Zimbabwe is not the economic environment in Zimbabwe is dead. There's not much opportunity to thrive in any context. And so, like I said, being LGBTI doesn't help the situation, because already if I'm coming with a business concept and my backing is also coming with what I'm providing comes with saying who I am or what I am or what I believe in, it means I'm limited with the opportunities that I can do. I can only come out so much before I am barred because of my sexuality. Therefore, we are disadvantaged at that. And so also the environment has a problem of not having the loan facilities. I think someone mentioned about having non-loan facilities. We'll have very poor employment numbers. Very few people are employed. And the few that are employed are earning peanuts. So imagine in an environment where the minimum wage of someone is $10 US. So already life is 10 up against you. There's no opportunity for you to thrive even when you have a job. It means for you to be able to contribute to the growth of the economy, you need to be thinking 50 steps ahead of your current situation. Yeah, I think that's about it to my contribution.
Thank you so much, Chewe, for this information, because I really noted when you said survival of the fittest, meaning there's a whole lot of tug of war or scramble and petition for success as mankind. And then there's also the issue that we are in the LBTQ community, and there's so much stigma and no inclusion at all in everything that we will be looking to do. Thank you so much for that. I'm sure a lot of people are dying to give questions. And again, to everyone who is a part and parcel of this session, do throw in who you are, where you are at, and what you do, so that in case of anyone who wants to just pick out something off of you, they will definitely do that. Next up, I will kindly ask Mary to come in with her own presentation and piece. Thank you, Mary. Over to you.
Thank you. Well, firstly, when I was given the aim of this session, it kind of took me off my feet. I felt a bit lost in what I was supposed to say, and also just trying to understand the narrative of what the presentation was supposed to be. But then, after reading it over and over again, I felt like it's basically talking about my own economics and my own reality, my own experience with my money and how I am living, how I am making my money, how I'm spending my money, what does my money mean to me. So this is how I looked at it, and I looked at all the categories that I am supposed to highlight on, around the budget tracking and financing, around the closure of labor markets, and also trying to change the global narrative of LGBTI people from it being about HIV. I think for me, I find that as a member of the LGBTI community, we have become so resilient in our work and in everything that we wish to accomplish, that we've always managed to make a way. Although a lot of markets have been closed to us, a lot of doors have been closed to us, we always seem to find a way. But I think if we are going to interrogate the microeconomics at a global level or even at a national level, we need to go back, I believe, to the drawing board and try and see what is it that we can do to put us in a better position as the LGBTI community. If we want to interrogate these issues as a community or as individuals, what do we need to do? So firstly, around issues of budget and financing, I believe we need to be part of the processes that are at national level. If we do not follow our budgets, if we do not take part in the parliamentary budgetary committee meetings, it becomes then very difficult for us to have a voice around issues of the budget and issues around anything to do with finance. Because for us, the finances we know is only the finances we have in our homes. But finance at a national level is something that we don't really have. Some of us do, but not all of us, because we have got so used to being part of this market that it's just a buying and selling market at a very informal pace. So our financial experience is the money that we hold in our homes. We do not have any faith in the banking systems, so we are not actually listening to anything that has to do with the financial issues that relate to financial institutions around the country. I believe that needs to actually change. And then when we come to issues of global markets or even national markets around issues of labor, I think as the LGBTI community, we can actually do more to get involved in what puts us as a labor force or makes us a positive, gives us positive market value when it comes to issues around trade, issues around labor. We need to get a better footing on the global scene. How do we do that? I honestly don't know. But I just think that we need to do things differently so that we equip ourselves with more information. And then as a community, we need to also push to take part in more local initiatives. Why are we not part of things like the the International Trade Fair, Zimbabwe International Trade Fair? Why are we not part of the Zimbabwe Agricultural Show? Why are we not part of the World Tourism Day when they have so many displays? Why are we not part of those business markets? What is it that is stopping us? And how do we interrogate and upset all those conversations that are being had that are excluding us? We need to see why are we excluded, and how do we now get involved so that we are able to take part in all these different activities. And then when we talk about changing the global narrative, I think we have to agree that the global narrative is what will drive a lot of the economies around the world. And if we are to change that narrative so that we fit in, what will that narrative be? We want a Zimbabwean narrative that will speak to each and every one of us as Zimbabwean citizens, first and foremost, and then challenge any kind of stigma and discrimination if you are left out. But I think our global narrative will only change if we can actually all be brought to the table. And how do we get to that table is what we need to actually look at now. As for taking it away from issues around HIV, yes, I think that should happen. But also, I would think with things like the global pandemic, which is COVID-19, we can actually use the roadmap of HIV, because I think that has been done very well. And as the LGBTI community, we were actually a big part of how that roadmap was actually set out. And it's with that as our backbone that we can say we need inclusion, we need to be on the response table, because we do have loads of experience. I think that's about what I can say. And sorry for my excluding myself in the very beginning, but I wasn't feeling too good. But yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mary. Not a problem. We are a safe space, I'm sure, and a person could present themselves in a way when they are a lot more comfortable. Thank you again, Mary, for highlighting such enlightened information about the things that are surrounding the issues we are facing as Africans, especially as Zimbabweans as well. I just want to welcome again everybody to our session. We are going to have next Zaipo, if you are in the house, and then after Zaipo, since you and Carol are in the same space, we could have you, then we have Carol dig in, then we lastly end with Diana, so that we get into our Q&A session, so that we really create a conversation and a dialogue. So it will be Zaipo, then Carol, then last but never the least, Diana. Over to you, comrades.
Thank you so much, comrade. I loved how Chewe brought it up when she started explaining the macroeconomics and what they really mean to us as the society. So first and foremost, personally, I would like to acknowledge that if we bring in the subject of LBTQ persons, the issue is more of people being sexual perverts versus them being economic contributors to their communities, the nations, and so forth. So let me take it to a bigger scale. As the world is focusing on SDGs and we're now trying to find how do we fit in, how do LBTQ communities fit in, I would just like to refer to SDG 5.5, which talks about gender equality, SDG 8, that talks of sustained, inclusive, and sustainable economic growth, and of course, SDG 10, we're not talking about how the world wishes to reduce inequalities, and all inequalities even focusing on gender inequalities. So let's shoot. What are we referring to when we talk about gender budgeting, as we're also talking about issues of budget tracking and labor markets? So gender budgeting is an initiative that uses fiscal policy and admin to really address gender inequality and women's advancement. So I'll give a case study in Africa where we look at Rwanda and Uganda, and we know the strides that Rwanda has done in their commitment to gender. And also let's look at how these are integrated for gender-oriented goals into budget policies. Please, I would like to mark the issue of gender policies, gender programs, and the gender processes. So unless and until we have these frameworks from above that would really look at that, can they really communicate to the grassroots at national level? So you notice that globally, if we look at the funding community, only 25% of that fund actually comes to women. And I haven't even talked about LBTQ women. So in that total funding for women, it becomes problematic because most of the funding systems, they actually demand funding project or activities versus operational cost for organizations, specifically that focus on women and also LB. So those are things that we should really be looking at. But why is that happening? We know that there is funding for queer minorities, but the funding that has been coming for queer minorities since people are branded as sexual perverts has gone to health. And yes, we've got Global Fund coming in, but Global Fund is focusing on MSM. There's very little that can be done when we're really looking at queer women. So even if you look at the LGBTI community using the Rubin sexual hierarchy lens, you'd notice that when it comes to the women nature, the less masculine, the feminine, even the programming and focus is very little. And this is not just a case study of Zimbabwe, but even globally. So let's look at the issue now where, as I highlighted, there was the issue of the MSM, and presently a lot of effort is going to trans, which is still good, but there's still that marginalization happening for the LBQ. Now, allow me to just hint on when you look at the United Nations, the Gender Development Index, which actually focuses on education, employment, and the health sector. Yes, as Zimbabwe have strides when we look at education, because we know that when it comes to issues of education, most women and all of us have strived to really do primary education. But when it comes to tertiary, with all those issues that come in, issues of sexual orientation, issues of gender identity and gender expression, which are actually the inputs to the macroeconomics and the labor markets, there are very few LBQ women that have actually gone through the tertiary. And for those who have, then they are not necessarily out there or known to be part of the community, because most people are actually in the closet. So let's talk about economic justice. As Africans, we need to really understand that we are referring to assets of productivity. And most of us, being Zimbabweans, I always say we always have national ID numbers that reflect our rural places of origin, because we know why Mugabe is Mugabe. The issues of resources for us as Africans matter. So do we have access to land? It's one thing being a married woman actually going to a village head and actually begging to get a portion of land. It's another when you're a queer woman who's not even married. So if you're looking at the issues of trade around, when we're looking at productivity, there are very few LB women. Actually, I have not came across, as I was preparing this presentation, I've not seen any research that has shown how the pink economy has thrived in the Zimbabwe context, specifically when we're referring to queer women. So a lot has to be done, because as we are referring to SDGs and everything happening, we're talking about leaving no one behind. And in not leaving anyone behind, it's unfortunate that the LGBT, the umbrella, has had much emphasis in programming for MSM and trans. So actually, even the minority in the minorities are actually excluded. So as I wrap it off, I would just want to say, I feel there's hope if we can, as a collective, be able to articulate our issues, even at global issues. Right now, there's the African Continental Free Trade Area. Probably it's time we started exploring as a collective as Zimbabweans, queer, as Sadi queers, really, where can we come through as we're exploring issues of the agri-economy, the cross-border, or even the digital rights economy, because these are issues growing. So instead of just hitting and saying there's nothing, I would like to look at the opportunities that come with it. And more importantly, I'm excited. 2 days back, the president, when they actually gave Victoria Falls the city status, we talked about the issue of women councillors coming in and the quota systems. Maybe this is time we started pushing more to have LBTQ people having positions of power. Take, for instance, if we look at the politics, the corporates, there are very few women which you'd find at the senior level. Women generally are underrepresented globally, and that is why we're celebrating the United Nations, where the president has put on a whole team of communication team being women. So maybe these are stepping stones. These are reflections that we should start doing to say, when it comes to commissions in the land, to political parties, what's our position? Maybe it's time we look at position papers and petitions, because from what has happened this week, I know it is possible. I think that was a
Thank you so much, Saipo.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Saipo, with such an insight. And I really took a keynote and liked what you mentioned when you spoke about being a queer person and trying to attain land and not being married and being this, meaning there is a whole lot of issues we are actually fighting against as ourselves, just as individuals. And also, I also liked it, and I agree with you when you mentioned that it's high time we take back our voice by being in influential spaces, by being in the governmental structure, by taking those high-profile jobs and being in places where policy makers or policy changers are there influencing our own existence. Whoa, Zaipo, thank you so much for such an insight. Like I had put the lineup, we have Carol and then Diana to wrap up before we get into the Q&A session. Over to you, Carol.
All right. So I'm going to read a poem I wrote in, I think, 2016. I was thinking a lot about what's going on in the world in terms of multinational corporations and how they extract the extractivism that takes place in our continent, particularly, or in the global south, and how some of these things come back to us as finished products, which we then buy into, and how neoliberalism is a big influencer for how macroeconomics takes shape and how core and peripheral countries sort of then have that unbalanced relationship. So it's a very short poem, but I hope it will get people reflecting. So it's called Paul Wants a Tree. She was ripped from her place, her beauty unfit for the earth's face, carried to a distant land. After being bashed, gagged, and hanged, heart bled and wept, she screamed, but on their mission they hastened. They trimmed, shaped, and oiled her. Then, as if to spite her, they jammed her back where they had uprooted her. Where once she lived majestically alive, she now stands lifeless, motionless, soulless. So that's the poem. I had, when I wrote this poem, I was walking in a backyard of an office that belonged to one of the organizations. It was at a workshop, and I saw a pole, and I felt this pain inside of me, and I just got moved to write something. So I think when we speak of macroeconomics and basically how the world is taking shape and the advent of globalization, I wouldn't say the advent, it's been there for a while, but I think it's just a matter of understanding how capitalism has been sold to us as the way we should all be functioning as the wavelength that we should all be tethering from. And I think it's really a challenge because it has made global South countries focus more on economic growth, which is not really future oriented, as opposed to economic development. So it's one of those things that we are sold this dream, and we are being told of a fourth industrial revolution as it is, and we are just buying into all these. But then we don't stop to take time to realize that those that are prescribing capitalism and economic growth to us as Africans and as people from the global South are the very same people who are not believing in it anymore, believing in that system of economic growth. Their excuse would then be that definitely, no, we have achieved growth, so now we want development. But it's very essential that we actually not focus on growth. Economic growth is the reason why there's so much harm to the environment. The earth is basically dying are all around us, it's like self-destructing around us. And we're still talking about creating thermal power stations. And I saw an article the other day that a certain bank had refused to fund any coal mining projects for the rest of its existence. And I think such steps are essential. I know they themselves have benefited from this and they've grown their empire from this, but I think it's such steps that really matter, where people hold themselves accountable and really have non-negotiables around the environment and around the effects of things like economic growth on the environment, and actually looking, because poverty is not just about physical wealth or riches, it's also about living a heritage and having a sense of identity. Because also in our fight as LGBTQI persons, someone said this, that we're planting a tree whose shade we're not going to sit under. And I believe that that tree, in order for that tree to give shade, we need to be able to ensure that it has enough branches and enough leaves. And that tree is both a metaphoric tree and an actual tree, which would not survive if there was no water, if there's no fertile land, if the earth is choking on all these toxins we're feeding into it, then that tree will never be existent. So it's actually one of those things that I think particularly for me, looking at macroeconomics, I actually find it very difficult to then come up with this whole theory of economic growth and how we need to grow our economies and all that. Because what we actually need is economic development at the very least. Even that is questionable, because it's something that in itself still has some shortcomings and shortgivings that it has as a system. But I think it's just a better angle to take, because it's really something that I feel when we focus on macroeconomics, we need to look both at the internal as a system, as a culture, as a country, as a continent, as a world. What are we doing right and what are we doing wrong? And why can't the systems that are in place now in the developed world, why can they not be brought here? Why do we need to reach this certain level of development by focusing on growth? So we're speaking about development, but we are not seeking that development. We're being told to seek growth, but we want development. So in order for us to reach development, we need to grow. To me, there's a disconnect there. And I think it's something that we need to focus on and actually question, to say what works for us as Africans, what works for us as the global South, what works, and how can we contribute as peer people to these values that would work for us? Because most of the people that have brought change in society have been peer people. And I think for us as peer people in Africa as well, we should stop being so disempowered, or in the global south, being so disempowered to a level that we feel like we can't contribute to the betterment of our society and the healing of our communities. So yeah, sorry to say too much, but it's something that I'm passionate about. Thank you.
It's okay. Thank you so much, Carol. I just wanted to echo to your poem that you shared with us. It's just a few Maya Angelou's quotes. There are just a few I'm going to read here to just echo your poem. These ones read, there's no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. Prejudice is a burden that confuses the past, threatens the future, and renders the present inaccessible. If you do not like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. I know why the caged bird sings. I'm just a lover of poem, and I do understand that having you share your presentation with this piece that you shared, it really spoke to a lot of the issues that we are just trying to cover. So not to waste so much time, Diana, I'm just going to allow you to kick in, and then we get into our Q&A and we start exchanging the dialogue. Thank you so much, Diana.
All right. Thank you, Tinashe, and thank you everyone else who's on the call. I also get very emotional when I talk about macroeconomic issues, particularly because there is a lot of talk around let's make economies gender sensitive. We talk about women development banks. We talk about a lot of initiatives that are supposed to be coming in and plugging the gap and bringing with them equity for women. And I think the struggle that I then have is when you break down some of that talk and some of those conversations and some of those initiatives, it does not address the reason why we are where we are right now. We are here because we have a masculine economy. We are here because we have masculine policies. We are here because we have masculine, a masculine world, rather. And I use masculine in a very broad sense because, of course, I think when we talk patriarchy, it presents in a lot of ways, and I don't want to necessarily call it a man. And then I'm trying to also trying to run away, I guess, from using too much feministic language. But we do need, though, to start having also honest conversations amongst ourselves around, number one, institutions that we do need to interrogate and dismantle. But that's not possible for everything. We do need to be talking about, for a lack of a better word, infiltration. What am I talking about? There are a number of institutions that we know in themselves are not bad institutions. There are policies in themselves that are not bad policies. And I'll give an example of, say, for example, fiscal policy that will then be announced by the Ministry of Finance, and they will say, we are giving tax incentives for 1, 2, 3, 4. In themselves, they might not be bad, but sometimes we are not involved enough to be able to then make sure that they benefit women. A lot of the time when a fiscal policy is announced, it's benefiting the big bank, it's benefiting the big miner, it's benefiting the big trader. But we know that quite a lot of our women are active in the small scale stuff, small scale agriculture, small scale mining, small scale trading, among other things, informal trade and so on. And what we need to start doing is to figure out how we do one of two things. Number one, how do we, as queer movements, as women, as feminist movements, as gender sensitive movements, first of all, become qualified, for the existing structures? How do we make ourselves qualify to access loans? How do we make ourselves qualify to get into some of those institutions that, truth be told, we don't quite like, but they're the ones that are controlling the policy. They're the ones that are controlling the money. How do we make ourselves qualify? Whether that's going to be because we have a whole capacity strengthening process where we do workshops, or whether we're talking about formal education to be able to do that. But the honest truth is we do need, as a movement, to infiltrate a lot of institutions, banks, Ministry of Finance, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, among other institutions, so that as we get into those institutions, we become the change that we are always talking about. The challenge is we are constantly the ones that are talking about someone else must change, someone else must change. And we need to start thinking, how do we infiltrate to be the ones that will change it? Even in terms of when we do our advocacy work, it's high time we pick a point, we pick a policy that we feel is very, very gender sensitive, that is very empowering, a policy that will propel women 10 years ahead. Let's push that policy. Let's push it at local level. Let's push it at national level. Let's push it at regional level. Let's put it at international level. The challenge is we usually then talk about it. Look at, for example, the type of participants that we have on this call. It's everyone who knows we have a challenge. It's everyone who understands we have a challenge. We are not going to a space where we are disrupting, and we need to start figuring out how to disrupt. And by disrupting, I'm not talking about we're getting into a space and just making noise, but we are saying, let's go there with policies that we've discussed that we feel will take us to the next level and actually contribute to women's equity. I usually don't like the word equality for obvious reasons. When we talk about economic growth and we don't talk about income distribution, for example, we are not helping our situation. We need to also start talking about how is the income in an economy distributed, and how do we start to make sure that women are partaking of some of that? How do we also come up with institutions, which I like to call the innovation and creation arm? How do we come up with institutions that start to service us in the way we want to be serviced? How do we come up with schools that teach us what we need to learn? And how do we also start to help each other get the right type of information to be able to start, again, infiltrating spaces? Because I do feel that for the longest time, we've been using what I'd like to call apologetic advocacy, where we are hoping that someone will come in and change it. Let's be a feminist mafia, you know. Let's agree on what we want to get done and go in there and take it. Let's not wait to ask. Let's go in there and take it. And I guess this is my contribution. I guess I just feel a bit tired of hearing the conversations, but feeling like we are really not at the tables where the decisions are being made. And we complain about it, but we complain about it to ourselves, but we're not going into the right spaces so that we are able to do that. I could go on and on forever, but let me maybe stop there with the conversation.
I understand. Thank you so much, Diana Mahilosi. It was quite also insightful and informative. We did interrogate on issues surrounding the budget tracking and financing for marginalized communities. We did look into the labor and the impact of not opening of the labor market. We did speak about issues around economic injustices. We did also speak about the different conversations that are also going global with regards to everything that oppresses anything that is us. And there are a lot of really informative issues that you spoke about, and I'm guessing in and out of the world they are learning. So we are just left with 15 minutes before our end of the session. I would like to kindly ask, I noticed Diana Milos, you had suggested we sing a song. I don't know, maybe we can sing a song 1 minute whilst I wait for people to put in their questions in the chat room. and then we can start engaging in the conversations and disseminating the information that people would wanting to know, just to have a 30-second to a minute breather. Anyone who can lead us into a song. I think, I don't know if we can unmute. Our host would just tell me if we can unmute ourselves and just, harmoniously sing a song, and then we get into the Q&A session for everyone. No?
We do want to sing, just don't know what song.
Any song, any movement song.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess the whole singing a song is not going well because I just hear chit chats. So just looking into the chat room, there's one ask from someone, QDQ's username on Zoom call, so that they can share their poem in writing. Somebody is asking for you to do that. And most people are really appreciative and accepting how this conversation and dialogue went well, and how we had a whole lot of interactions. Okay, so our host has suggested we just have one minute song that they could share with us here. If there's any one with suggestions, you can just put them in the chat box. So from each other, do we have anything that we would like to ask or add on, or any reflections upon the conversation? I would kindly ask Patience, if you're in the house, to just do a reflection for us. Patience.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Tinashe. And I guess it was some wonderful, powerful reflections from everyone. And I think me sitting from a position of working within the LGBTI community for a long time, I appreciate such spaces because we hardly ever get a chance to really speak around issues even of economic justice. Most of our activism and most of our work has been really boxed down in the narrative of health, in the narrative of violence, in the narrative of how our bodies, and our identities play out just in the realm of protection and security, but we never really speak around how, we have to be vocal around economic justice. We have to be vocal around access to education, access to empowerment, access to everything. And such spaces and such reflections are very powerful for me because it really got me to a point where I was thinking around how we should also, as a movement, as the LBTQ community, shift from moving, our work and our narratives, looking further, linking it to, like was said, the SDGs, not only around our protection, but also around all other SDGs that apply to us. We're doing some interesting work around the Beijing Plus 25 review processes. And I think one of the key issues we picked out from there was around economic empowerment and leadership. And it's something that, listening to everyone who's presented, I've been thinking around
how can we also use such platforms like the upcoming Beijing +25 reviews to amplify our voices, to amplify our work in terms of all the other work that is not really centered around health and violence. So yeah, I think thanks to everyone for such powerful reflections. And I think it's a conversation that we're going to continue moving forward post this dialogue, and also engaging in the other dialogues that are going to happen within the GSWF 2020 the next 2 days. So I think, yeah, we can reflect on that and continue the conversations process. Thank you, Tinashe.
Thank you so much.
Other people to reflect.
Okay, so there is one question that just came into the chat box, and I'm just gonna read it out. It was from Tanaka. Tanaka is asking, thank you so much. It reads, thank you so much to all presenters here. I'm wondering if the panel thinks there is a role for LGBTQ plus diasporians outside of Zim in changing the global narrative, and some people discussed and bringing economic justice.
Can I shoot, Nasha?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I love the question. You know, this session really makes me want to be turned on. Definitely there is. Because remember, most of the presentations we're talking about more of lack of resources. And usually when we talk about the diaspora, we're talking about their role in remittances. Therefore, if there can be a dialogue where people are coming in and investing back home to push projects, and to me, when I'm referring to projects, you know, for me, I foresee a community which would have a huge economic project where people are buying shares, and we have our diasporian allies coming in investing. So definitely these are the dreams, the visions we should be having. So yes, they definitely have a role to play in helping us with the resources and even with some technical issues as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saipo. I'm just looking here. It's all comments and it's all responses. Thank you again, our participants, and thank you again to our presenters. Just to have closing remarks so that we can close off. We are left with 9 minutes till 2 o'clock. So if you guys could just give your closing remarks about the session that we have, which was so refreshing, informative, and enlightening, because there were a lot of things that I myself learned out of all of you. So I'll just say, throw it in one person at a time, so that we have your closing remarks and we salute. We can start with the last person to present. Diana, you can give us your closing remarks, then we go from front to back.
All right. I guess maybe mine is almost like touching what also Tanaka was asking around. I think because I'm in this zone where I'm thinking a lot around issues to do with infiltration, I'm thinking about we need to pool resources and actually start, first of all, developing our own capacity. And secondly, having some type of a coordination, something that allows us to know who's doing what and where. For example, if I were to find out how many people right now, just on this call, are in business, there are a lot. We could partner up. If it's NGO work, we could also find out how does your work and mine enhance each other, because ultimately we do need to get some strategic people, even if it means we've just identified 10 people. Let's put those 10 people into politics. Let's put those 10 people into business. Let's put those 10 people into an institution that produces policies or something like that. But I'm just thinking some type of a project that we can look back and say, 2 years ago, if it hadn't been for this particular initiative, we probably would, so something along those lines, something a little more radical and business unusual type of approach. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. Let's go and have 1 minute per person, my presenters, so that we do a closure. We are left with 7 minutes. Over to you guys. Mary, Tash, Zaipo, Carol.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much for the space and everybody that has made time to come on this call. Thank you also for making the space itself safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Tash, over to you. 1 minute remark before we close.
Okay. I would say that all of this would not be achieved without agency. And I don't mean
I'm sure there's a slight network problem with Tash's
in just collective agency, I also mean personal agency. LBQ persons need to consider ourselves activists, try as much as we can to
Thank you so much, Tash. Over to you, Zaipo and Carol.
Okay, Carol here. I think it's Hello?
Yes, Zaipo, go on.
It's Carol. No, I was just saying that I think it's crucial now more than ever, because post-COVID or during COVID as it is still, I think a lot of the progress made towards realization of rights and all that, there's been a bit of a backflow in terms of progress made. But it's also an opportunity for us to create the kind of future that we want and need, and work where mistakes have been made before. This is an opportunity to fix that and create feminist futures as they were.
Thank you, Zaipo. Thank you, Carol. Are you with Zaipo? Any of my picture way? I'm so sorry, I nearly forgotten about you. Please, your closing remarks, ma'am.
Okay, this is Zaipo. And yes, I'll pick up from Carol. I was motivated about the tree presentation, and I'm seeing us trying to plant that tree, Nature It. It's a tree of empowerment and emancipation of LBTQ women in the economic justice in the region. And I think it's possible if only we can be strategic and be clear and be ready to work towards it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Chewe, over to you.
So for me, ideally, it's about wealth redistribution. Like said by Diana, we need to own the spaces, and owning the spaces, we need to be unapologetic and uncompromising. I think the biggest problem is sometimes we do get into those spaces and we over-compromise our positions. And instead of taking what we want, we end up taking what everyone else who's been at the table longer wants us to do, just because it allows us to sit at the table. So I would like to encourage us to be uncompromising, determined, and push no matter the backlash. And thank you for this.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
These 2 minutes that are left. Miles, are you still in the house? Okay, I would kindly ask you guys to unmute yourselves, and then you will follow after me what I will be saying. I know we are not singers, but I've got a song for us that I learned from a taking over. So you guys will then say we are taking over.
And also just sorry, it's patient. Just to ask all those who are comfortable to just unmute their videos as well.
Oh, and all those who are comfortable to unmute their videos, so that we just do the song the last 2 minutes.
For online presence.
Okay, awesome.
So we can
the host does some of the videos, eh? Like mine, the host does.
Can you all hear me? You guys, you have to say we are taking over. You sing after me.
Okay, so I think the open up first. I think we need to try. Okay.
Can you hear me, guys?
I've just got a message saying here, you cannot start your video because the host has stopped it.
Okay, the song says we are taking over. It's supernatural. We are overcomers.
Let's try it.
Taking over. It's supernatural. We are overcomers. We are overcomers. Sadly, you guys are not singing after me.
We don't know the words.
I did say we are taking over. It's supernatural. We are all overcomers. Oh my word. Okay, I'm sure we are all activists and we're not good at everything. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming through. It's 2 o'clock. It's just hit. I just want to say thank you so much. And we will be.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you again, guys. Have a lovely day. Enjoy your day, and thank you again. Goodbye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye, everyone. Bye.